Welcome back. Now, as part of our focus on energy today, we're discussing the Eskom crisis. It's been 2 decades in the making. Let's bring in Energize magazine editor and energy sector analyst, Lilley, who's joining us virtually. Thank you very much, Mr. Lilley, for your time, and welcome to All Angles. Now, we all know we have problems, right? We all know that Eskom is going to be a thorn on our side for quite a long time, but things seem to be getting worse.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for inviting me to your show. This is a very important story because, yes, things are getting worse. We don't see things getting better anytime soon. Unfortunately, it seems that at the moment, everybody seems happy with this finger pointing and apportioning blame. So we have a situation where the existing management team are blaming previous management teams at Eskom. Previous Eskom management teams are blaming the current ones. The Eskom are blaming the government are blaming Eskom. It's just going round in circles, and at the end of the day, we're not really making any progress.
Just explain to me something, Mr. Lilley. I think a lot of South Africans are wondering about this particular issue. So there's this debate and this word doing the rounds that government is going to charge South Africans who decide to get off the grid, and that they've started doing this in the Western Cape. Is this true, and how will it work?
I have no idea how it will work. It's very concerning, but it's something that other municipalities are also discussing regarding people who have rain tanks and want to go off the water grid. So the concern is that the municipalities are saying they will stand to lose revenue when they're no longer selling water or electricity, and therefore they have to find that revenue from somewhere else. So they're going to find some way of instituting a levy or a charge for people who decide to go off grid. I'm not sure how this is done globally, but obviously they have a point. Certainly the revenue stream would be lost. But one would think that if you want to keep the revenue stream going, then what you do is you supply a service that people want.
This is unfair. It's monopolist, it's capitalist, it's everything wrong with the same government that promised us none of that, right? Because they cannot even supply the power. So you're telling me that you can't supply the power, and I must accept that. And if I decide that I'm no longer going to use you, you charge me for it.
Yeah, no, it's totally unacceptable, absolutely. But, you know, as the editor of a magazine, I must be careful not to take sides. However, the reality is that the government ultimately hold the responsibility to provide South Africa with affordable, reliable electricity supply. They have assigned that responsibility to Eskom, and that doesn't mean that they are no longer responsible for it. They're simply using Eskom as the tool by which they will achieve the end, where every South African will have access to electricity which is affordable and reliable. Now, they're not doing that. And the concern that I have is that over the last 15 years that we've had load shedding, with a very short period of about 2 years where load shedding was suspended, we have lost so many jobs, we have lost so many opportunities for business growth, we have lost so many people and businesses to other countries. So we really are going backwards economically, and yet we don't hear the ministers responsible for this, in particular the Minister for Public Enterprises, the Department of Public Enterprises, Mr. Gordhan. He should be on television every night of the week, just as our president was when COVID came on, because the energy crisis is every bit as serious as the COVID crisis. People are dying differently. They are dying because they are losing their jobs. They're dying emotionally, as it were. They've lost trust in this government. They've lost trust in the country. And yet the minister responsible for Eskom, his responsibility, it's in his portfolio, is silent on the matter. And when he does speak, all he can do is point fingers and blame the utility. But what's the point of blaming the utility when the utility is your responsibility? Then it is your problem. And I don't get it. I really think that the Minister of Public Enterprises needs to really take this matter seriously, or else the president needs to replace him with someone who is younger, better educated, and more in touch with the reality of what South Africa needs now and going forward in the coming years. And unfortunately, the Minister of Energy is in the same boat. They produce, the ministry has produced an integrated resource plan, which was drawn up and published in 2019. This thing talks about new nuclear and clean coal, both of which are not just unaffordable, they're completely unnecessary and unsuitable for South Africa. So what sort of advice is this man receiving? And why is he caught up in this dilemma? And when you don't agree with Mr. Gwedi Mantesha, you get fired, just like Peter Becker found, who was a board member of the National Nuclear Regulator. He got fired because he disagreed with the minister. Come on. These men should be replaced. They should be replaced quickly. Otherwise, we're going nowhere fast.
And also, I mean, looking at it, Mr. Lilley, we've changed the board, we've changed the executive at Eskom, but the power stations in Mpumalanga we're still being told are problematic. We're still being given the excuse about the coal being wet. We're still being given an excuse about more rainfall than expected. I mean, for how long must we sit here as South Africans and accept this? Because we can all see that nothing is really being fixed. I don't know if it looks like anything is being fixed from your side.
Yeah, look, the problem that Eskom faces is primarily one of money. They have this enormous debt load which is crippling the organization. Something like 2/3 of the revenue received every year from the sale of electricity goes to meet that commitment, to pay the debt off. And they can't survive on what's left. And this is the difficulty. So they keep going to the government for bailouts. And granted, they've been given bailouts, bailout after bailout. But the bailouts are not sufficient, because what we need really is we need the private sector to come on stream big time, to come alongside Eskom, to provide additional power. Mr. De Ruyter has said numerous times that he cannot do this alone. He needs both the industry and government support to make electricity available to the nation. And you know, the last thing we heard, by the way, from the minister was this, that we should not expect that load shedding is the new normal. Well, excuse me, but it is the new normal.
Exactly.
And we have no choice but to buy generators or solar panels or something other to make a plan to provide power for ourselves, to keep our businesses going, to keep our lifestyles going. How does the government expect to create jobs when factories cannot run reliably because they don't have power, or they don't have affordable power because they've got to use diesel generators which cost them a fortune? Does anybody in government actually stop and think about the ongoing implications of load shedding?
I don't know. I don't know anymore. But thank you very much for speaking to us here on All Angles. That was energy expert Roger Lilley there speaking to us about our problems with Eskom.